Welcome to the PitchVision Academy Cricket Show. This is a little haven for you if you love playing cricket or you love coaching cricket. We're going to talk about the game for a little while and hopefully come up with some solutions to some problems which may help you out somewhere along the way. My name's David Hinchliffe. I look after things here, and helping me to help you is the Director of Cricket at Millfield School. It's Mark Garaway. Hello, Gareth. How's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. Having a very good couple of weeks. We had a brilliant evening on Monday night where James Hildreth, who's a beneficiary, a testimonial this year with Somerset, ex-Millfield, came along and did a Q&A evening with us, with all of our young players, which was fantastic. Bringing along club captain Tom Abel, should be on the Ashes tour, Jack Leach, and then somebody that I coached a long time ago in Keith Parsons, who headed up the evening as the compere, and we had an absolutely fantastic time. So it's been really interesting to hear some of the concepts that those guys talked about on the stage coming into our sessions this week, because the players have said, I want to have a go at that, I want to have a go at this, and it just shows that having those influences coming from outside can often get the grey matter going a little bit better. Yeah, we've had a great week, mate.
That sounds fantastic. That idea of emulating your heroes is something which is, happened forever, isn't it? And it's still something which goes on now, even though sometimes it feels like people do their best to stop it from happening, with, saying, you shouldn't copy and taking cricket off the television in the UK. It's something where, let's try not to emulate our heroes a little bit, but actually it's just one of those things that human beings do, isn't it? And I don't see anything wrong with it. It's a very powerful thing when you do it right.
It's so powerful, and I think it also shows the real power of listening to people talking about what they do. And whilst you might not do it in the same way as they do, when you go about doing your shots or bowling your action or whatever, just that inspiration, and that's what it was. The kids got so much inspiration from hearing about how the blokes go about their business, and it just then puts a little bit more focus when they come into the sessions. I've had a couple of absolute blinding sessions this week, which have been driven by the player off of the back of being inspired by the words of those four, which is fantastic. So one of Hildy's bits of gems was just be a sponge, and take in as much information as you possibly can, listen to everything and be inspired by the bits that really grab you. And I thought that was a great mantra for the night, and it's certainly come out this week without us having to push it, which is always good when the player is in charge of that process.
Yeah, it's great to be able to do that. It's great to be able to say to yourself, oh, yeah, I like that, but that other thing, that's perhaps not for me, but still be strong enough to not make it a negative, to not say, oh, well, that's not for me, so no one should ever do it ever. And you're wrong if you think you should. But to have it sort of in the armoury and go, well, okay, maybe that's not for me ever, maybe that's not for me right now, but it's probably for someone at some point, because here's a history of success with whatever thing we're working on. So to keep in that frame of mind of being able to assess things, work out whether they work for you, and then not be too negative if they don't work for you because they work for someone is a really powerful thing these days.
Especially for a coach now, because we want to build up as many strategies as we possibly can. Because, as you say, somebody will present in front of you in that way at some stage. So if you can keep that in mind, then you can fall back on that and go, I remember when James Hildreth said that could actually work brilliantly for this player, whereas for that player it might not do. And I think the bigger our encyclopedia of approaches, the more appropriate we can then be when we're using it with any individual.
And then, speaking of getting better, I'm always reluctant of using words like shortcuts or quick tips or things like that, because often there are no shortcuts and there are no quick ways to get to what you want. But there are some things which have a bigger sort of bang for their buck than other things, and that's something I wanted to focus on this week when it comes to fielding. But everybody talks about, if you want to improve your fielding, do a lot of fielding practice, take a lot of catches, stop the ball a lot, try as much as you can to be fit and athletic and run about and keen and enthusiastic, and that takes time and it takes effort. But I was wondering, Gareth, are there any sort of areas that you focus on a little bit more, because you know you get a lot more results for less work than you do necessarily having lots and lots of volume when it comes to developing fielding skills? If you've got someone who's really keen, they want to improve their fielding skills as quickly as possible, what areas would you hone in on above and beyond when you're just talking about just take a lot of catches or do a lot of stops or all the rest of it?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant question. I reckon that cricket coaches generally and cricketers generally are fantastic at doing the volume, actually, in preparation for performance. They do it really well. So the volume for me isn't the challenge, because I think it's always there, because fielding practice is fun. You know, it's certainly in many ways more fun than actually fielding itself, because it's obviously concentrating your time to pick up as many balls as you possibly can and take as many catches as you possibly can. But my challenge to all coaches in particular is to try and enhance performance and as a accelerated rate rather than just letting volume do its thing. So the biggest one for me is pickup, because the pickup is probably the thing that we practice the least. So we do loads of catching practice, we do loads of throwing practice or run out practice, but actually the emphasis when we do a run out is about hitting the stumps. And when we do that hitting the stumps thing and we put the emphasis on it, often we don't pick the ball up very much. So I would say I'd spend more time now working on pickup than I do anything else, because you can't run anybody out unless you get the ball in your hands at some point, or unless you're incredibly good with your feet. And generally run outs with your feet tend to happen from a bowler following through and the ball being very close to the stumps, where you wouldn't throw it anyway. So the pickup is massively important, and there are some areas that you can work on around pickup. Basic pickup I'm talking about. I'm not talking about one-handed things. I'm not talking about when you're moving laterally, but most people have a fairly poor technique when it comes to picking up the ball that gets hit straight towards them. So, you know, we can impact upon that by following a bit of a baseball principle, really, which is getting down to ball level a bit better. In cricketing terms, we tend to go down to the ball, go down to pick the ball up that's on the ground far too late. So our journey to it is very steep. And as a result, we tend to bounce out of our pickup. So if you can imagine that our body and our hands are going down quite late because we're running to a ball, then we go down late, and as soon as we get to the ball, we bounce back up again. That's that action-reaction thing, go down, come up. And obviously, unless we time it absolutely optimally, we're not going to get the ball in our hands. Where if you watch a ground fielder in baseball, they'll be moving towards the ball, but they'll be allowing the ball to come to them in a lower position, so they'll already be preparing to be low, and they talk about getting their chest to their thighs when they're picking the ball up. And this does two things. It lowers our centre of gravity, it gets our head closer to a ball, it gets our hands down on the level and height and line of the ball for longer, which gives us a better control in getting the ball into your hands. But also it's storing up energy for your throw as well. So most people, when they throw, they pick the ball up and they straighten their legs, and by straightening their legs straight away, all of the energy is going out the top of their head rather than being propelled into the back of the ball. So if you can imagine a javelin thrower, he doesn't run up completely upright. There's actually a little bit of a sort of squat thing before he unleashes hell into that javelin. So if we can get down lower in anticipation of the ball, get our chest down to our quads, touching those when we pick up, we're not just helping our pickup, but we're also helping to prepare for the next bit of the phase, which is to put some sparks out the back of that ball when you're throwing it to a keeper, to a bowler's end, or in fact to a set of stumps.
And how does that? What would you say would be an improvement in that? Obviously, you've got a very clear outcome there. It's either a clean pickup or it's not. So you're very clear on what is a clean pickup and what isn't a clean pickup, but you can get more efficient with it, right? So how do you sort of measure the success of that over a period of time? Because if someone's getting the ball in their hand, but they're going down and up in that steep way that you said, then they're maybe not being as efficient as possible. And then you've got someone else who maybe isn't is getting lower, but is maybe picking up slightly fewer balls, but the ones they're picking up are better. So how do you kind of compare those two people and say, right, well, okay, you know, this person we need to make sure he's picking more up, and this other person we need to make sure he continues picking them up, but he's getting lower.
Well, I think you could run some pretty basic statistical stuff on that, and having a whiteboard up next to each person's name, and you might have two indices on the top. So clean pickup, hard throw, accurate throw, and basically you can put a tick in each one of those if you get everything spot on. And that's a way of measuring it. So the more times you get everything spot on, you get 3 ticks. You know that you're doing it right, and then you can have a think about it, particularly if you've got a video camera, or, which is one of the best bits of kit, I think, a lot of people have got iPads and iPhones now, or other phones that do stuff. You can get a tripod attachment which you can put your phone onto. So for a pickup, for example, if I'm hitting balls and we know where the person's going to be picking the ball up from, there's like a replay mode, a bit like PitchVision, but there's an app which just replays the last 10 seconds. So they can actually complete their skill, whether they fumble it first and then pick it up, or whether they pick it up and throw it with poor accuracy. And then after they've thrown the ball and finished their action, they can turn around and see what they've done. Now, if that's allied to 3 ticks or 2 ticks or 1 ticks, they can then balance up the ticks on the board with what they're seeing on the iPad or the phone. And then all of a sudden they can start making their own adjustments. And that is a perfect coaching situation, because it allows us as a coach to ask some really good questions, but also it allows them to be able to be statistical in terms of outcome and in terms of process, and also visual in what they're seeing, which is going to be relating into how successful they are. So to me, you know, we've got this technology around. You can get a tripod for 15 quid, you can get an attachment for a tenner, and all of a sudden you've got an opportunity to make some good statistical evidence, I suppose, but then backing it up with some video as well. And that to me is how you go about building more awareness in what should be happening and what leads to success.
Let's move on to some questions now, questions that have been sent in by listeners to the show, or maybe readers to the PitchVision website over at pitchvision.com. And we're going to do our best to answer these questions, and then we're going to pick the best question of the week, which wins a prize of an online coaching course from PitchVision Academy at pitchvision.com. And if you want to send a question into a future show, you can email us. coach@pitchvision.com is the email address, or you can get in touch with us through other ways, which we'll tell you about towards the end of the show. The first question this week is from Boris. And Boris says, are there any drills or exercises that can help me with bowling a fuller length, or will it just come with time? I guess we're going back to that volume question again, aren't we? You know, if you just keep powering through, eventually you'll get it right.
Yeah, and I suppose time can come into that, but a bit like my previous answer, really. If you have a bit of a strategy of how you're going to go about it, then you'll probably reduce that amount of time that it takes to make that natural adjustment in bowling a fuller length. Now, a fuller length could be down to something technical. It could be something that's meaning that you're pulling the ball down into a pitch too much. Whether you're a fast bowler or a spinner, I'm going to speculate that you are a fast bowler here. So there could be something technical, and obviously that could be an array of things. It could be where your weight is distributed, it could be where your release point is, it could be how your body is folding, it could be a combination of a number of things. But often it's about how we use our vision, because line and length can be a vision thing. So I'll give you an example. People that have got a narrow vision and quite like bowling at targets are often people that when you take that target away and they're just looking at a bit of grass on a pitch, that they sort of stop picking out a point that they want to hit. And there's some people that can run up and bowl with a very fixed mindset of whether they want to hit the top of off stump or whether they want to hit a particular point on the pitch. So somebody like Glenn McGrath, if you hear him talk, he's very specific about what he was trying to do when he was bowling. He had very specific points that he was trying to hit, both on the pitch but also where he wanted the ball to end up as well. And those guys, if you can teach them to use their visual preference of being narrow, they all hit a length far better than not. Other people, and I'll give you an example of somebody that I've worked with a little bit in Mornay Morkel. If you put a cone down or a target down and ask him to bowl at him, it would throw him completely. So you get him to look around some sort of target area and really trust his feel, his kinesthetics, the feel of the ball coming out of the hand, because length can a lot of the time be based on that feel. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing that you do is you get somebody to do some bowling, and at the last minute, as they're running up to bowl, they're looking, they jump up in the air, and then to close their eyes and to feel the ball out of their hand and bowl. And one of the benefits of doing that, they then have to tell you what length they think that they bowled it into. Now, their line could go at this point. You know, that's not what we're trying to work on here. But they'll start to associate the feeling of the ball coming out of the hand and the length that it goes. I did a session, which I think you're going to feature this week on our on the blog, on the Coach Education blog, which started in pitch dark. And all that we could do was work on feel of the ball coming out of the hand, because we had no idea where the ball was going in terms of line and length. We took the whole of the outcome out of it, but Josh, who was the bowler in that session, could start to feel whether he felt that the ball was going to come out and have a chance, he's a leg spinner, but have a chance of hitting a length. So there's two things for me here. Can we use our vision appropriately if we're narrow focused to pick out some points a la Glenn McGrath, or can we develop that feel which is associated with the ball going into length? And if we can work on one of those, or even a combination of those, then it's going to give us a much better chance. But equally, if your bowling action is flawed in certain ways and it's not going to help you to be able to hit a consistent length, but beyond that, let's say your bowling action is sound, then feel and vision are going to have two pretty important roles to play in whether you can hit length.
It's one of the more fun sort of coaching pieces of advice you can give, I think, if you've got someone who is struggling with line or length and you think possibly they are a narrow focus person. So you say to them, where are you looking when you bowl the ball? And they say, oh, I don't know, somewhere down there, somewhere. I say, try looking at the exact spot on the pitch you want the ball to hit. And they go, oh, okay. And they try it. And I'd say if you get the right person, 9 times out of 10, that next ball is a pretty good ball. So it's nice to get
I agree.
Like that instant feedback, because there's so many things that we do that are, you know, you think it might work, but it's going to take a little time and it's not quite, it doesn't happen quite instantly. But that is one of those glorious sort of golden moments where you seem like an absolute genius to that person. But actually you're just helping them focus, and it is as simple as that. But it is a lovely thing when it works to say to someone, oh, just try looking at the top of off stump, really aiming for the top of off stump, see if that works for you. Oh, look, it does. Okay, well, let's keep doing that then, shall we?
I did.
And it's a nice revelation.
I did a session the other day where I got 3 tennis balls and then put 3 tennis balls on the ground, tightly knit, put 1 tennis ball on the top. And for a guy that I've got a pretty good idea is narrow focus, he was bowling nicely, don't get me wrong. Bowling it into all right areas, but I felt that there was more to come from him. So I took away his discs that he was aiming for, which was sort of length. You know, he was trying to put out length, and I said, right, that's great. But I put 3 tennis balls down, and then I balanced 1 on top. I said, right, what I'd like you to do is to knock those tennis balls over. And it's obviously a much finer and smaller area that he's trying to land with loop, land that ball on top of those 4 tennis balls that are balanced on top of each other. And all of a sudden, when he missed by the smallest of margins, and eventually he hit, but he was missing by the smallest of margins. Now, you're not going to run up and just hit that over and over and over again, because there's nobody in the history of the game that's done that. But if you can miss your target area as a narrow focus person by minimal amounts every single time, then you're bound to be putting that batter under pressure when you can simulate that back into a game situation.
Who was it? What player from yesteryear was it who said that he used to put a hanky down on a length and used to bowl it until he could hit it consistently? Well,
I think that's what a lot did. I'm thinking of Bill Bowes from years ago, who was in the bodyline, because I remember watching. This could be completely and utterly making the story sound better. But on the bodyline videos that they had years and years ago, where they put some actors into it it was an Australian thing, which is comical but brilliant at the same time. They did like some trialling. They had Harold Larwood was the guy who was put in to bowl fast and bowl bodyline short balls at the Australians, and obviously target Bradman. And one of the scenes is him coming out of the mine, and Douglas Jardine putting down, I think it might have been a halfpenny or a tuppence or something like that.
Sixpence.
On the length that he wanted him to bowl at Bradman, and he ran up and missed it a couple of times, and then hit it straight on the Queen's head or King's head or whatever it was. And so that would work for a narrow focus person. As I said, working with Morné Morkel, it completely threw him. Where he was practicing his Yorkers, and he wouldn't have hit a barn door for about a week. So we took that out of the equation and asked him to feel the ball into his Yorker length, and all of a sudden his consistency came in. So it's about trying both of those approaches. When you've worked out which one it is that best resonates with that person, and sticking with that. So it's either a vision thing or it's a feel thing, and in some cases it can be a bit of both.
Yeah, and it's not. The point is, it's not a new piece of coaching advice, but it is an effective piece of coaching advice if you get it to the right person. And this is from Ian Pont, so he's great with these things. Grab the sight screens and all that kind of thing. One that he said works for a lot of people is if you say to if they're a fast bowler, try and hit the wicketkeeper's gloves as hard as you can. And if they're a broad focus type of person, then that sort of takes away the idea of trying to hit up a very specific spot, and you're just thinking, oh great, okay, I'm just going to try and get the ball through as fast as I can. And if you hit in the wicketkeeper's gloves, that's the sign of good success. So that's a nice one that's worked for a couple of guys I've been working with as well. So find the right language, and you can unlock things very quickly. Next question is from George. And George says, I've just started bowling fast, and I find that I land my front foot with the toe first, not the heel. My coach says I also bend my front knee, and this is slowing down the pace of the ball. The thing is, when I try to land heel first, it's just painful in my knee, and I lost all accuracy. Is there anything I can do, or do I just have to accept I am limited in this way?
Well, firstly, whilst it's optimal in terms of producing pace to bowl with a straight front leg or braced front leg, it's also, there's that whole performance miles per hour thing against having robustness from a physical point of view to be able to repeat as well. So the top end performance bit of it solely, without thinking of injury prevention and how each person's body work and all of that, is to bowl over a braced front leg. So if you're thinking about that, back in my day, it would have been Alan Donald would have been a classic example of somebody who was able to bowl over a braced front leg, and as a result he was top end, and other things that he had going on his action which were magnificent. He had top end pace, but with that also came ankle challenges, knee challenges, exactly the same as what you're talking here. So we see a number of bowlers now who are bowling at good level, in Dale Steyn being one of them. Dale Steyn has a leg that bends and then has a bit of stability into it. So it's not the be all and end all of everything, because with every action, as I always say, there's a reaction. So having that braced front leg is optimal from a performance point of view, but not always is going to be useful for you in terms of being able to bowl consistently injury free for long periods of time, because it's using those ground forces optimally from a performance point of view rather than absorbing them particularly into a body and beyond. So it's not a deal breaker, that is for sure, because you look at Dale Steyn, there is an element of flex in there, and he is very good. So let's not be a slave to one thing on that one. So don't get too caught up in it. The most important thing really is that you are injury free, and one of the things that you can do which helps us to absorb force from the ground as we go into it is to go heel first and then through our foot plate and over the top of our toes when we come out the other way. And this is going back to what I call the tram principle, so because you're increasing the time that your foot's on the ground, so you're absorbing that force over a longer period of time. You're increasing the range, so you're taking the force over a bigger range. The area that you can absorb that force in is more. Your mass is going to stay the same, because you jump up into the air and you'll be whatever kilograms you are. You land, you'll be whatever kilograms. So really, it's the time, it's the range, and it's the area that you're increasing. When we go down on our toe, we're obviously very acute. There's a very small area, so the forces that are coming down into the floor are exactly the same, but they're being spread over a shorter period, a shorter area, and a shorter range, so they're going to be more acute, which is why your knee is bending. So one of the things that you can do to try and prevent yourself from hitting the toe is to run in faster and jump lower. And what will tend to happen is your delivery stride will spread out a little bit, okay, by running in faster. And as you can imagine, if you're sitting down and listening to this, or you're standing up, as you step further, you're likely to have that foot hitting the ground on the heel and then go through. So that's what we're looking to do. The other thing that often is linked to it as well is the fact that our bowling arm, non-bowling arm, if our non-bowling arm is just short and it's completing too early, that can often have an impact on the front foot coming down. If the front foot comes down too early, we are likely to be hitting the forefront of our foot rather than the back of our foot. So going back to Ian Pont that you mentioned earlier, if you can be reaching for both side screens, then obviously you're going to be delaying that front arm, which is then going to have an impact on when the front foot comes down as well. So the longer we can delay that arm, the more likely our front foot is going to be reaching out, and with our front foot and leg reaching out, we're likely to hit the heel first and then go through to the toe, thus dissipating the forces and giving you more chance of bowling over a more braced front leg. But as I said at the beginning, having that braced front leg is fantastic from a performance point of view, but not always brilliant from being able to deal with the forces coming up the body, and ankles and knees can be a little bit vulnerable.
Steph Jones, I think, is started saying, you want to be braced, but you don't want to be locked. And if you're hyperextending that knee because you're trying to lock it in so tight, then that is going to be causing you a problem. So I think even the sort of the cutting edge guys are saying, look, we can be a little bit more flexible about what we mean by a braced front leg. Let's not pretend that it's a pole and there's no joint in it, because there is a joint we've got to work with there. So you got to, and the knee is one of those things that is very, very easy to break and very hard to fix. So having that flexibility to say, well, okay, it doesn't matter as much if there is a little bit of a softness in that knee rather than just completely locking it in, then that's going to help you in the long run, I suppose.
And that's the difference between a bowler and a javelin thrower, because javelin throwers do huge amounts of training, but rarely are they throwing at absolute maximum velocity with a javelin. And as a result of that, they're probably throwing 40, 50 javelins at absolute max per year, per yearly performance program, because they're looking to peak at certain events, and if you look down the history of javelin throwing, people are looking to peak at World Championships, European Championships, and World Championships. So that's 3 over a 4-year period. So you don't mind having to peak at that time, but a fast bowler has got to be able to repeat ball after ball, over after over, 3 spells a day, and then come back again the next day and then do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. So in javelin you're looking at having as close to that braced leg, that locked leg as possible, which purely because you're not looking to repeat your maximum very often over the course of a year, whereas in cricket we're doing it constantly. So I think Steph's advice is absolutely spot on that, and the more we're beginning to understand the body and performance and robustness, the better we are at explaining that.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't be a fast bowler if you're injured. So the number one priority has got to be to make sure you do everything you can to stay healthy. And I think maybe in the past there were times when we sort of fixated is a strong word, but we locked in on certain things that we thought, okay, well, this is definitely going to be good for injury prevention, so we better do that. And then the more we looked into it, the more we realised that it wasn't quite as we thought it was in the first place. And I think having that flexible approach and not being dogmatic about it and saying this is what we know right now, so we're going to do our best to stick with what we know right now, but also be open to other ideas as research happens and as people it becomes clearer what helps people better. That's going to help us in the long run as well. So I think in the maybe 10, 15 years ago we were just getting into this idea of injury prevention, and people went along a road which maybe went a bit too far along the road. But now we've sort of got that flexibility in saying, look, we know that injury prevention is the thing that we want to have as the big priority, because if injuries happen you can't bowl, but also we need to be flexible. We don't need to be dogmatic about it. And I guess that all boils back down to that whole point about what your knee does at the point of impact. It's something as simple as that. You can make slight adjustments as you go and keep yourself on the park.
So you look at, two of England's most exciting bowlers over the past 20 years have been Andrew Flintoff, who, from not necessarily in relation to locked front legs or not locked front legs or bracing or collapsing, but he had a sort of flaw in his bowling which meant that his front foot was pointing towards sort of fine leg when he let go of the ball, and every time that he bowled, with all of that weight, all of that energy and massive ball release speed going through his system, the alignment of his foot, it meant that every now and again he'd have to have his ankle flushed out or his knee flushed out. So he wasn't able to bowl at his top pace relentlessly for years and years and years on end. And we've got now with Mark Wood, now there's elements of his action there obviously are going to, his effectiveness goes down, and then he has a period of time out of the game. So, as you said, David, you can't be a fast bowler if you're injured, and it's a great shame for somebody like Mark Wood that we don't get to see him more often, because every time he bowls at full pace, he's one of the most exciting sights in world cricket.
And that is the end of the show for another week. Before we leave, we do need to decide on the winner of the competition this week. So, Gareth, let's see what we got on offer this week. Boris's question about bowling a fuller length, and George's question about landing with his front foot with the toe first, amongst other things. Which question did you prefer this week?
Well, I'm going to go with Boris's one this week, because it's not an area that's always coached around how to rectify bowling a fuller length. Hopefully there's a couple of strategies that we've given you based on some pretty good best practice. I mean, there aren't too many better than Glenn McGrath, and it's certainly something that he talked widely around that I've picked up on and used with certain players. So have a go at that, and then equally have a go at the just feeling it, maybe doing a bit of closed eyes, or doing as I did the other day and go inside when it's pitch black outside and give that a go as well. So I'm going to go with Boris's one this week.
Well done, Boris. You win the prize, the online coaching course from PitchVision Academy at pitchvision.com. And Gareth, if there was someone listening who was not Boris and they wanted to have that chance to win the prize, certainly get their question answered, how could they get in touch with the show?
They could give us a call on 0203 239 7543 or drop us an email on coach@pitchvision.com.
That's right. There are social media ways to get in touch with us as well. You can use the social media messaging system at pitchvision.com. Our account there is PitchVision Academy. We encourage you to join in the fun there. You can also get us through Facebook, facebook.com/PitchVision Academy, or Twitter at PitchVision Acad. If you want to listen to the show every week, you can do that pretty easily too. Just go to your favourite podcast app, do a search for PitchVision Academy. You'll find us there. You can subscribe to us. Comes out every Friday. And if you want to get the show in the slightly old-fashioned way through our website, you can stream it there. You can download it. You can get all the show notes, and you can do lots of other fun things there as well. You can go to pitchvision.com/academy and click on the podcast link. That's all for this week. We hope you listen next week. But until then, have a good week. Cheers, Gareth.